Brad Pitt sat quietly on the patio of a nameless little café that overlooked the misty coastline of Northern California. The sign above the door simply read, "Coffee," its paint peeling, its wood warped by salt and time. A place forgotten by Yelp, untouched by paparazzi, and perfect for someone who didn't want to be found. He wore an old baseball cap, overgrown beard, and dark sunglasses, his usual, incognito armor. He wasn't here to be Brad Pitt. Not the actor, not the icon, not the headline. Just a man who needed silence. And maybe a warm drink. The waitress didn't even glance at him when she walked over. "That was new, what'll it be?" she asked, voice dry, holding a notepad but not writing. "Just tea with lemon, please. And maybe, something sweet. Pear and pecan pie. Made it this morning." She turned without another word and walked away. Brad opened his mouth to thank her, but she was already gone. Odd. But peaceful. As he sat back, a thought crossed his mind. This place reminded him of Old Poppy's, a tiny coffee shop he used to frequent in the early days before auditions, before fame, before he could afford cream in his coffee. Then, without warning, she looked over her shoulder. "This place kinda feels like Old Poppy's, doesn't it?" she said casually, not even waiting for an answer. Brad froze, his mind scrambled. Old Poppy's had been closed for decades. No one knew about it except him and maybe two people from a life he'd buried long ago. She couldn't have known. Not unless he said nothing. Just nodded slowly, eyes hidden behind dark lenses. The next day, he came back. He told himself it was for the pie. But it wasn't. She was there again, wiping down tables, humming something soft under her breath. When she noticed him, she didn't look surprised. "You came back," she said, not smiling. "I liked the tea," he answered, trying to keep it casual. "No. You liked the quiet," she replied. "The quiet's louder than anything else in your life, right?" This time, he couldn't hide it. He stared at her. Long and hard. "Who are you?" he asked. She hesitated. Then pulled the chair across from him. "And Saturday, I'm someone who wasn't supposed to speak to you." "Not ever," she said, fiddling with a too large silver ring on her finger. "I came here with a plan. I knew who you were the second you walked in." Brad's guard instantly went up. "I thought maybe you had something worth stealing. A watch. Cash. Something I could pawn. I've done it before. I needed the money. And now." "Now," she sighed, "it's not about any of that. It stopped being about that the second I started hearing your thoughts." His eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me? Your thoughts. Not words. Pictures. Feelings. Memories. I see dreams, Brad. But they're not mine. They're yours. They've always been yours." She looked straight at him, her voice shaking. "I saw you as a kid, sitting on the back of an old red truck. I saw you crying alone in a motel room the night before your first big audition. I saw your dreams, real dreams where you wander through a museum looking for your own face in a painting. I've been dreaming them since I was 16. Brad stared, heart pounding. She wasn't just telling a story, she was telling his. "But, how?" he whispered. "I don't know," she said, almost breathlessly. "At first, I thought I was going crazy. Then I saw you on TV, years later. The man from my dreams. The same voice. The same walk. You even had the same jacket from one of the dreams. I kept it all to myself. Until now." He leaned forward, as if the world behind her had faded into mist. What do you want from me? I want to know who I am, she said. Because I think, knowing you is part of it. And not just because you're famous. Because something in me has been waiting for you. She stood up quickly, as if she'd said too much, and turned to go. Brad's voice stopped her. What's your name? She turned back, slowly. Mira. Brad didn't sleep that night, not a wink. That he lay in the unfamiliar coastal cottage he'd rented under a fake name, staring at the ceiling as if it might whisper answers. The sheets felt too warm. The air too thick. Every few minutes, his hand drifted to the old silver bracelet on his wrist, something he hadn't worn in years. A gift from his brother. A quiet reminder of who he used to be before his name was a headline, and Myra's voice echoed in his head like the final line of a script he couldn't stop rehearsing. I want to know who I am, because I think knowing you is part of it. Who was she, and why did she know things that no one, should have known? He returned to the café the next morning. Before sunrise, the streets were still wet from early mist, and seagulls floated above like aimless ghosts. He sat at the same table as yesterday, ordered nothing, and waited. At exactly 7:02 a.m., Mira arrived, her dark hair pulled into a loose braid, a green jacket hanging from one shoulder. Her eyes widened when she saw him, as if surprised he'd come back, but she didn't say anything. Not right away. She poured him tea. No questions asked. No notes. Then she sat down at the table beside him. Not across from him, beside him. Like they'd done this for years. I didn't expect you to come back, she murmured. I didn't expect you to walk into my head yesterday, he replied. She gave a nervous laugh, the kind that shakes just before it breaks. I didn't mean to. It just happens. Brad took a breath. Tell me more. Everything. When did the dream start? Mira leaned back, her fingers curling around the lip of her mug. I was 16. Living with my aunt in the suburbs. My mom, well, she left when I was a kid. My aunt didn't talk much. Neither did I. I had trouble sleeping, but when I did, that's when I saw you. At first, you were just a face in the background. Walking by. Reading scripts I couldn't read. Crying under a street lamp. It didn't feel like fiction. It felt real. And as the years passed, the dreams got longer. Clearer. I saw everything. The doubts. The fear of not being enough. The little joys. The ache of pretending. The loneliness behind a smile. She looked at him with something both intimate and distant, as though she knew the sound of his silence better than his voice. I watched you fall in love, she continued softly. More than once. And I felt every time you lost it. Brad swallowed. The only people he'd ever opened up to that deeply were long-gone lovers, friends, even therapists, and none of them knew all of it, but this girl. She knew the grief he felt when his dog died at age 11. She knew about the diner waitress who gave him a free slice of pie when he was broke and jobless. She knew the moment he stood on set, shooting his first lead role, feeling like a fraud. And that terrified him. He reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the table, a photo, black and white. A boy, no more than 6, with a missing tooth and scraped knees, holding a model airplane. The corner was worn, the image slightly faded. Mira blinked at it. I've seen this, she whispered. In a dream. The plane had your name written on the wing in red ink. Brad's hands trembled slightly. I lost this photo when I was a teenager. I've never found another copy. No one's ever seen it but me. Myra's eyes glistened. I didn't steal it. I swear. I believe you. They sat in silence, both staring at the frozen boy in the photograph, as if he were the bridge between two separate worlds. Finally, Brad broke the quiet. So what do we do with this? What does it mean? I don't know, she admitted. But I think I was supposed to meet you. And I think I was supposed to stop trying to run from it. She hesitated. There's something else. Brad turned toward her. I stopped dreaming for 2 years, she said, eyes downcast. They just ended. After my dad died. There it was. Her own wound. Not his, not borrowed. Hers, and then, she continued, last week, they came back. But louder. More vivid. Urgent. And always the same ending, you, walking away from a cliff. Then darkness. Like something's missing. Like you're about to make the wrong choice. He frowned. What choice? I don't know, she said. But I came here the day after that dream. I thought maybe I could stop it. Whatever it is. Brad looked at her long and hard. That he no longer cared why she came here to steal something, that he cared that she'd stayed when she didn't have to. He cared that she knew the weight he carried and didn't flinch. That he cared that she remembered his dreams better than he did. For the first time in years, someone saw him. Not the actor. Not the image. Him, and it terrified him as much as it comforted him. That he pushed his chair back slowly. Come with me, he said. Where? Someplace quiet. We need to figure this out. As they walked out of the café, Mira glanced back, half expecting something or someone to stop them. But nothing did. Only the sea in the distance, whispering secrets through the wind. She didn't know where this path would lead, but she knew it was the first dream she chose to follow. The ride to the cottage was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Mira sat in the passenger seat of Brad's old navy blue truck, her hands folded in her lap like she was trying not to disturb the air around her. The windows were rolled down slightly, letting in the salty wind, the scent of wet pine trees, and something fragile like anticipation. Brad glanced at her once, then again. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't fidgeting or pretending. She looked like someone who'd already lived this moment once before. Have you dreamed this part yet? He asked, eyes still on the road. She turned to him slowly. No. This is new. Somehow, that made the air feel heavier. The cottage was small, tucked into the slope of a cliff with a narrow view of the sea. Inside, it was simple, wooden beams, old furniture, and a fireplace that hadn't been lit in months. Mira stepped inside and paused like she was crossing a line she wasn't sure she was allowed to. She walked straight to the bookshelf in the corner and touched a worn leather-bound journal, then turned to him. This was here in a dream once, she said. You were reading it. You said it reminded you of someone you forgot. Brad walked over. Took the journal from her hands. Flipped it open, blank pages. Every single one that he exhaled. I've had this thing for years and never used it. Mira blinked. Then maybe it's waiting. He didn't reply. They sat in the living room as the sky dimmed into the deep blue of late afternoon. Brad handed her a cup of chamomile tea, and they sat across from each other, two strangers bound by invisible string, talking like they were trying not to wake something ancient between them. Do you think we've met before? Mira asked quietly. In another life? Brad asked, half smiling. You believe in that stuff? I used to laugh at people who did. But now? I don't know. I just feel like I've been walking toward this moment for a long time, even when I didn't know you existed. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he got up, disappeared into the next room, and returned with a small wooden box, something old, etched with a faded carving of a mountain and a sun. He placed it on the coffee table and opened it. Inside were keepsakes. Personal ones. A rock shaped like a heart. A photo booth strip with someone's arm just out of frame. A child's drawing with the name, Bradley, written in shaky letters, and beneath them all a bracelet, simple, silver, delicate. With a single word engraved inside, Mira, she gasped. Visibly, her hands flew to her mouth. Her entire body froze. That's mine, she whispered. I had that when I was little. I lost it when I was 7. I cried for days. My dad said maybe someone would find it and wear it to remember me. Brad didn't speak. He was pale. I found this bracelet 20 years ago, he said slowly. On the ground outside a bookstore in Montana. I was filming. I kept it, because I thought it meant something. It does, she said, almost breathless. It's mine. He picked it up and placed it in her hand. Their fingers brushed, something invisible passed between them like a tuning fork vibrating through their bones. Later that evening, Brad lit the fireplace. The sky outside had turned charcoal. Wind pressed against the windows like a child wanting to come inside. Mira stood by the window, staring into the night. I need to tell you something else, she said, her voice distant. Brad turned from the fire. What is it? I used to draw you. He blinked. When I was 10. Before the dreams really started. I didn't know your name, didn't know who you were. But I drew your face over and over. My aunt thought I had an imaginary friend. She kept the drawings. Brad felt something shift inside him. Do you still have them? I don't know. She passed away a few years ago. I haven't been back to that house since. Maybe we should go, he said without thinking. Mira turned to him. Why would you do that? He looked at her. Because I need to know how far back this goes, because I need to see what you saw, because I think you're not just dreaming my life, you might be part of it in a way neither of us remembers. But he didn't say any of that out loud. Instead, he just said, because I believe you. That night, she stayed in the guest room. Brad stood at the door after saying good night, unsure what else to do. How close was too close. She looked up at him and said gently, you're different in real life. How so? Quieter. Sadder. But softer, too. He gave her a small smile. You're nothing like I imagined, he replied. She tilted her head. You mean in your dreams? He didn't answer. That I in the middle of the night, Mira sat up in bed, eyes wide open, not with fear, with clarity. She had just seen something she never saw before. A place, a name, a page from that blank journal filled with handwriting. Not hers. She got out of bed and walked barefoot into the living room. The journal was where they left it. She opened it. The first page was still blank, but the second had one sentence written in black ink. You found me before. You'll find me again. Her hands trembled. Behind her, Brad stepped into the room, rubbing his eyes. That he saw the open journal. Her face. What is it? He asked. She held it out. That he read the words. And stopped breathing for a moment. That's my handwriting, he whispered. But I never wrote that. Morning came gray and soft, like a veil pulled across the world. Rain tapped gently against the cottage windows, just enough to make the walls creak. Mira stood alone in the kitchen, barefoot, holding a warm mug between both hands like it was the only thing tethering her to the ground. She had barely slept, not because of the dreams, but because of the lie that had followed her here like a shadow she couldn't shake. Brad emerged from the hallway, hair tousled, voice still wrapped in sleep. "You're up early." "I couldn't stay in bed," she said without looking at him. "Too much in my head." He walked over, poured himself a coffee, then leaned against the counter. There was a quiet between them now, not cold, not warm, but filled with unspoken things. She could feel it rising in her throat. She knew she couldn't keep it down much longer. Later that morning, they sat outside under the porch roof, watching the rain blur the horizon. Mira fiddled with a loose string on her sweater, heart pounding. She knew what she was about to do might end whatever had just begun, but she also knew, if she didn't say it now, it would rot everything from the inside. "I lied to you," she said quietly. Brad didn't react right away. He took a sip of coffee, eyes still on the rain. "You told me you came here to steal from me," he said eventually. "That wasn't a lie." She shook her head. "It was, but not all of it. There's more. And it's worse." He looked at her now. Not angry. But waiting. She took a shaky breath. "I wasn't just trying to steal a watch or money. I was sent here. Someone hired me." Brad's posture shifted subtly, a breath caught in his throat. "To do what?" She swallowed hard. "To get inside your house. Take something specific. They told me you'd be here under a fake name, staying low. Said it'd be easy because you'd let your guard down." He blinked. "Who's they?" "A man named Elliot. I don't know his real name. He finds people like me, girls with good instincts, who can play innocent, get close to men with power. Celebrities, CEOs. I met him at a shelter last year. He offered me money I couldn't refuse." Brad looked away. Jaw tightening. "And you agreed," he said, voice lower now. Mira nodded. "I did. I came here with a fake story. With a plan. I watched you for 2 days before I spoke to you. I knew when you came, where you were staying, even what you like to order from cafes when you're off the grid. Elliot gave me a file." Brad stood now, pacing, and then, he asked. "What changed?" "You," she said. "And the dreams. They got stronger the moment I stepped into your world. The first time I saw you up close, it hit me like a storm. I couldn't go through with it. I didn't even try to look for whatever he wanted." "What did he want?" "I don't know. He said I'd know it when I saw it. A personal artifact, he called it. Something only you would care about. Something with emotional weight. He talked like he knew you." Brad stopped pacing, his gaze locked onto hers. "I have a stalker," he said softly. "Not a fan. Not someone who posts about me. Someone who's been trying to get into my life from the inside for years. My team dismissed it as some unhinged collector, but I've had 3 break-ins since 2018. Nothing stolen. Just rearranged." Myra's face went pale. "I didn't know that. I swear." She stepped closer, her voice breaking. "I know how this sounds. I know I'm the last person you should trust. But I didn't do it. I couldn't. I started seeing things I couldn't explain, feeling things I didn't understand. I stayed because I had to, not for Elliot. For me." Brad said nothing. The silence between them this time wasn't empty, it was full. Of anger. Confusion. Hurt. And something deeper, disappointment. Mira stepped back. "I'll go," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to fall into your world, Brad. I really didn't. But now I can't pretend this wasn't real." She turned toward the door, but before she could take a step, he spoke. "Stay." She froze as he stood still, shoulders tense, but his voice was steady. "I don't believe in coincidences," he said. "Not anymore. Not after that journal. Not after that bracelet. Not after the dreams you've had." He walked closer, his eyes searching hers. "If someone's using you or both of us, I need to know who. And why." Her voice cracked. "I don't know if I can help you." "You already are," he said. She blinked. "Why would you even want me near you after what I told you?" "Because I've lived in a world where people lie with perfect smiles and honest eyes. And you," he paused. "You're not perfect. But you're real. And I'd rather face the truth with someone real than be flattered by another polished lie." Mira bit her lip. A gust of wind blew the rain sideways, and in the distance, a black car slowed down on the road above the cottage. Too slow to be passing by, Brad noticed it too. His jaw tightened. "Looks like we're not the only ones awake," he murmured. Inside, they locked the doors. Brad turned on his phone for the first time in days. 10 missed calls from a private number. One voicemail. He hit play. "You're not alone out there, Brad. Don't trust the girl. She's more like me than you think." Myra's face drained of color. Brad looked at her. "That voice," she whispered. "That's him. Elliot." Brad put down the phone. "You're not going anywhere," he said, "but we figure this out together." The wind howled outside the cottage like a warning. The black car was gone now, but not forgotten. The air inside was sharp with tension, not fear, not yet, but the kind of energy that builds right before something breaks. Brad sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, head bowed. Mira stood near the fireplace, arms wrapped tightly around her chest, as though holding herself together. The voicemail replayed in her mind. "Don't trust the girl. She's more like me than you think." She wasn't sure what scared her more, that Elliot was nearby, or that somewhere deep down, a part of her feared he might be right. "I need to tell you the rest," Mira said finally, voice raw. Brad looked up, tired eyes meeting hers. "I never told you why I ran from Elliot," she continued. "It wasn't just guilt. Or fear. It was something that happened, before I came here." Brad waited. "A few weeks ago, Elliot sent me to another house. Not yours. A different target, some Hollywood producer. I broke in while he was away. Got inside. But what I found wasn't what I expected." She exhaled. "There were photos, Brad. Hundreds. Not of the producer. Of you. And me. But not just here, not just recently. Photos from years ago, shots of me as a teenager, you at events, candid pictures from opposite sides of the world. Even one of us, standing together." Brad stared. "But that never happened." She nodded. "Exactly. It looked like an old photo, aged and cracked. But I was never there. We never met until now. Or so I thought." He rose slowly. "And you're sure it was Elliot?" "Yes. There were letters, too. Notes scribbled with timelines, dream analysis, phrases like, 'the Mira frequency,' and, 'synchronization event pending.' I think Elliot wasn't just trying to steal something from you. I think he was trying to create something. Or maybe, recreate it. Brad's voice was quiet. Recreate what? She looked at him. Eyes filled with something she couldn't explain. You and me. A heavy silence fell. Brad walked to the journal on the coffee table and flipped it open, still just the one sentence, you found me before. You'll find me again. His voice broke the stillness. When I was 27, he said, I had a breakdown on set. Everyone called it exhaustion. But the truth was, I couldn't tell what was real anymore. I was dreaming full conversations, entire days, then waking up and realizing they never happened. Or worse, that they had, but to someone else. Someone I couldn't remember. Mira said nothing. Brad looked at her. In those dreams, there was always someone beside me. A girl. Never clear. But constant. The one thing that made the world feel okay. He took a step closer. I called her Mira. And I didn't know why. Tears filled her eyes. I think Elliot found a way to trace those dreams, Brad continued. To follow them. Maybe even, manipulate them. But he didn't create this. We did. That night, they left the cottage. Brad knew he couldn't stay hidden anymore. Mira knew Elliot wouldn't stop, not until he had whatever version of their connection he thought he could control. So they went back to the beginning. Myra's childhood home. The house was old, silent, creaking with the memory of other lives. Boxes in the attic. Dusty furniture covered in white sheets. She hadn't been there in years. They found the drawings in a trunk under the bed. Dozens of them. All of Brad's face. Some smiling. Some sad. All drawn when Mira was a child, long before she knew his name, and in the back of the trunk, folded in yellowed paper, a photo, Mira and Brad, standing side by side. The photo was dated, July 1996. Brad stared at it. Speechless. That's impossible, he whispered, but Myra's hands trembled as she turned the photo over. There, written in her own childhood handwriting, we'll meet again someday. Don't forget me. They stayed there for hours, barely speaking. When they emerged from the house, the sky was painted with stars. No Elliot. No car. No sound but the wind. Something had shifted, like a loop had closed. Weeks passed. Mira moved to Los Angeles, quietly, privately. Brad helped her find a small place near the hills. They met often, but never with pressure. They sat in silence, cooked meals, watched old films, spoke about dreams real and imagined. The dreams changed, too, softer now. Less chaotic, sometimes shared. They never spoke Elliot's name again. No calls came. No letters. No sign of him, almost as if whatever he was trying to force, had already fulfilled itself without him. One day, Brad came to visit and found Mira sitting on the porch, reading the old journal. Any new pages? He asked with a smile. She flipped it open and showed him, page after page. Now filled with entries. Moments from their time together. But neither of them remembered writing them. He read one aloud. We were never strangers. Just pieces of the same life, scattered across time, waiting to remember each other. He looked at her, and for the first time, she smiled without fear. Years later, long after the media had stopped caring where Brad Pitt disappeared to for those quiet months, and long after Mira had stopped wondering whether their connection was accident or design, they found a letter tucked in the back of the journal. It was unsigned, but the handwriting was familiar. You were never my experiment. You were my mirror. I only wanted to see what I had lost. You were both the dream I could never control.